right. So we're diving deep today into a world where UFO sightings and government secrets and ancient mysteries all kind of collide. It's wild. You guys have sent us a really fascinating mix of sources for this deep dive. We've got everything from YouTube videos and personal accounts to, ancient texts and even some stuff about the occult.
Yeah, it's really striking how these seemingly like totally separate threads all start to kind of weave together into this narrative that challenges our understanding of like history and technology and even reality itself. It's pretty crazy.
It really is. It's like you pull on one thread and this whole tapestry of hidden truths starts to unravel.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's start with those recent Pentagon reports on UFOs.
Okay.
I'm talking about that 2004 encounter by those U.S. neighbor pilots off the coast of San Diego.
Right, right.
They described this tic-tac-shaped object, like 40 feet long, making these movements that totally defy physics.
Yeah, Commander Fravors' testimony, he was the pilot. It's super compelling. I mean, he described this object like hovering over this churning patch of water, and then it like shoots upwards to meet his jet and then just zips away at an insane speed.
It's just nuts.
And the thing is, this account, it's like it aligns with a pattern of similar reports from all these credible witnesses, especially military personnel and pilots, going back decades.
Yeah, and that's what's so intriguing. This isn't just some random one-off. It seems like it points to this larger phenomenon that's been going on for a long time. It makes you wonder, like, what happened before these recent reports? Like, were there other investigations into these occurrences?
Absolutely, there were. And that brings us back to the 1942 Battle of Los Angeles. Think about it, the whole city's on high alert, and they've got these anti-aircraft guns firing on these unidentified objects in the sky. I mean, can you imagine?
That's crazy.
I know. And the official explanation was weather balloons. But the sheer scale of this event and how long it went on, it just suggests something way more mysterious.
Yeah, the weather balloon thing, it just doesn't cut it.
It doesn't. It feels like a classic attempt to just downplay or dismiss something that the authorities couldn't explain.
Totally.
And what's interesting is that it happened during wartime, when everything was super secret and everyone was anxious. So could that have contributed to this government cover-up? Were they just worried about public panic? Or maybe even the possibility of some crazy enemy technology?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. And then, of course, we have, like, the biggest UFO mystery of all time, Roswell, 1947, the alleged crash of a flying disc, all those persistent rumors about recovered alien technology being reverse engineered. It's wild.
Roswell is definitely one of the most debated UFO events in history. The initial reports of a flying disc were quickly retracted and replaced with that infamous weather balloon explanation. But so many researchers believe that that was just a deliberate attempt to cover up the true nature of the event.
Right, right.
It's suspicious for sure.
Okay, but here's where it gets even more interesting. One of our sources suggests a possible link between Roswell and Operation Paperclip. That program where the U.S. brought all those Nazi scientists into the country after World War II?
Oh, interesting.
I know.
The connection to Operation Paperclip is really fascinating. Some people think that those Nazi scientists, especially the ones who have been working on those advanced aircraft and rocketry programs, guys like Wernher von Braun, they were recruited to analyze and possibly reverse engineer technology from that Roswell crash site.
So you're telling me that the U.S. government might have used Nazi scientists to, like, unlock the secrets of alien technology? That's, like, straight out of a movie.
It sounds pretty wild.
But it does make you wonder if there were any breakthroughs in those early years of the space race that could be linked back to Roswell.
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? It's hard to find any real proof. But the timing of some of those technological advancements and how secretive they were about those early space programs, yeah, it definitely makes you think.
Yeah, it does. And, speaking of events that might be connected, our sources mention this lesser-known UFO crash that supposedly happened even before Roswell.
Oh,
Yeah, in 1941 near Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
I haven't heard about that one.
I hadn't either until we started researching for this deep dive.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting.
What happened?
Well, this case, while it's not as famous as Roswell, has some really intriguing details that are similar to later accounts. So, Charlotte Mann, her grandfather, Reverend Huffman, was supposedly a witness, and she describes a metallic disc-shaped object and non-human bodies, and even a government cover-up.
Really?
Yeah, so it's like this incident, if it's true, could be a precursor to the Roswell event. It suggests a pattern of UFO activity and government secrecy, going way further back than we originally thought. And what's even more interesting about the Cape Girardeau case is that it comes from a family's oral history. It wasn't some big media story. It's a story that's been passed down through generations, which makes it seem even more authentic. Okay, so we've got these intriguing UFO events, hints of government cover-ups, and the possibility of recovered technology too. But what if these events weren't totally new? What if we've been visited by advanced beings throughout our history? Like, what if this is just the tip of the iceberg?
Right, and that's where things get really interesting. Some of our sources explore this idea that maybe these events are, they're like part of a much bigger narrative, a narrative that goes all the way back to ancient civilizations, and their myths and legends.
Oh, you're talking about those ancient astronaut theories.
Exactly.
The idea that, like, advanced extraterrestrial beings visited Earth a long, long time ago and, like, influenced the development of human civilization.
Yeah, and one of the most famous people who believes this is Zecharia Sitchin. His work focuses on the ancient Sumerians and their really detailed cosmology.
Okay, yeah, the Sumerians remind me, weren't they like one of the first civilizations? Mesopotamia, cuneiform writing, all that.
That's them. And their mythology is so interesting. Sitchin basically argued that their texts, especially the one called the Enuma Elish, actually describe a group of extraterrestrials called the Anunnaki,
Okay.
and they supposedly came to Earth from a planet called Nibiru.
Oh, yeah, the Anunnaki. I remember those from, like, documentaries and stuff. It's
Yeah.
the figures with the big almond-shaped eyes in the ancient Sumerian art.
Right.
But Sitchin doesn't stop there. He actually claims that the Anunnaki genetically engineered humans to mine gold for them.
Yeah, that's a big part of his theory. He says that when you look at certain Sumerian symbols and stories, they're actually evidence of like advanced technology and genetic manipulation and even a war in space that created the asteroid belt. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's some next-level stuff. But how much of what Sitchin says is actually accepted by, like, real scholars and archaeologists?
That's a good question, and that's where things get a little more complicated. Sitchin's work has been super influential. Like, it really helped popularize this whole ancient astronaut theory. But there are a lot of scholars and archaeologists who just don't buy it. They say he takes some of these ancient passages out of context, and they think his translations are sometimes inaccurate. So you definitely can't take everything he says as like the absolute truth.
So maybe we shouldn't treat Sitchin like the ultimate authority. But even if we don't take his interpretations literally, there are still those interesting passages in the Bible that some people point to as evidence of ancient extraterrestrial contact.
Oh, yeah.
Like Genesis 6.1-4, with those mysterious sons of God that come down and have kids with human women and create the Nephilim.
Right. Genesis 6.1-4 is one of those passages that always comes up when people talk about the ancient astronaut theory. They see those sons of God as these extraterrestrial beings who interbred with humans. But of course, there are those more traditional biblical interpretations, too, that say the sons of God were fallen angels or just powerful human rulers.
True. And it's wild how those ancient texts can be interpreted in such different ways, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just the Bible and Sumerian text either. Like, what about all those stories from Greek mythology about the gods coming down from Mount Olympus and interacting with humans? Like Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, they all had these crazy powers, and they always intervened in human affairs.
Oh, that's a great point. The Greek myths are full of those stories about gods with advanced technology. Like, what about Hephaestus? He made all these incredible weapons and machines. And those gods, they interacted with humans all the time. Sometimes it didn't go so well.
Yeah, that's true.
It's so interesting to look at those stories through the lens of the ancient astronaut theory. What if these powerful gods were actually extraterrestrials with technology that the ancient Greeks just didn't understand?
I never thought of it like that. It makes you think about those old myths in a whole new way.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of ancient stories and advanced beings, what about those accounts of the Rohilla from India?
Oh, yeah.
Our sources mention them descending from the sky and kidnapping villagers.
Those Rohilla legends are another great example of a pattern that pops up in cultures all over the world. These beings, they're usually described as really tall, big heads wearing strange suits. And they supposedly interact with humans in good ways and bad ways, kind of like those Greek gods we were talking about.
It's almost like there's this archetype of these advanced beings visiting Earth. And it keeps appearing in cultures that are separated by tons of time and distance.
Right.
From the Anunnaki in Sumeria to the gods of Greece to the Rohilla in India, the stories have these crazy similarities, like they're all tapping into some kind of universal human experience.
Yeah, and these themes, they go back even further in time. Think about those old cave paintings with figures that have large heads and weird features.
Yeah.
Like the Wangina figures in Australia, or the Birdman figure in the Lascaux cave paintings in France. I mean, were our ancient ancestors actually trying to tell us something about their encounters with beings not from this planet? Or were they just expressing their spiritual beliefs? and fears?
It's a good question.
It really makes you think.
Okay, so we've talked about UFO sightings and government secrets and ancient astronaut and all these mysterious figures in mythology. It's been a wild ride. But our sources also go into this whole other area, the paranormal, specifically alien abductions and the contactee movement.
Yeah, this is where things get way more personal. We're talking about people who claim to have been taken aboard UFOs, sometimes against their will, and they say they were given medical exams or messages about humanity's future.
Right. And those experiences, what people call alien abductions,
Mm.
they're often described as just really traumatic and disturbing. And what's crazy is that abductees often describe very similar experiences, even if they come from totally different backgrounds and cultures.
Yeah, and that's what makes the whole abduction phenomenon so fascinating. They often talk about being paralyzed, taken to a sterile room with a metal table, and they're subjected to medical procedures. Some even say they saw hybrid children, part human, part alien. It really makes you wonder, are these accounts just hoaxes? Or are they psychological delusions? Or are they real encounters with non-human intelligence? I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's mind-blowing and kind of scary to think about. I mean, if these abduction experiences are true, it suggests there's some kind of interaction going on here with non-human intelligence. It's not just like they're watching us. They seem to have some sort of plan.
Right, and that's where things get even more disturbing. Some of our sources make this connection between these alien abduction stories and reports of satanic ritual abuse.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying there's a link between alien abductions and ritual abuse? That's wow.
Yeah, it is. And it's really important to talk about this carefully, with sensitivity to people who have been through trauma. But what some researchers have noticed are these similarities in the way people describe these events, like the settings and even the messages they receive during these experiences.
Hmm.
Things like metal tables, probing, feeling paralyzed, and messages about hybrid children. These things are reported in both contexts.
So you're saying that some of these abductions, maybe they weren't aliens at all, but actually like human perpetrators.
It's a possibility. And some sources even suggest that maybe there are advanced mind control techniques that could be used to create these false memories of alien abductions.
Oh, wow.
And they point to the CIA's MQ Culture program as like a potential origin of these techniques.
Oh, man. M-Cultra. Yeah, that was a seriously dark time.
Yeah.
They were messing around with LSD, hypnosis, all kinds of stuff, trying to like control people's minds.
It's wild. And officially, the program ended in the 70s, but some people think those techniques were still being developed in secret.
That's pretty intense to think about. Like if some of these abduction experiences were the result of like messed up government experiments.
Yeah, it's definitely a disturbing thought. But our sources also present this other interpretation, which is maybe even more unsettling,
What's that?
a spiritual one.
Spiritual. You mean like demons?
That's exactly what some sources suggest. They're saying that some abduction cases might actually be demonic entities pretending to be aliens.
Whoa. Okay, now we're getting into some seriously weird territory. But I gotta admit, yeah, we have been seeing this theme of the occult and paranormal stuff in a lot of our sources.
Right. And one of the theories that really stuck out was that maybe these demonic entities are actually the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim.
The Nephilim.
Yeah, remember those hybrid beings from Genesis 6?
Oh, right, right.
Well, the theory is that when the Nephilim died, their spirits, they got trapped in this weird spiritual limbo. They're not human, they're not angels, and now they're roaming around trying to mess with humans.
So you're saying there's this connection between ancient biblical texts, UFO sightings, alien abductions, and the occult. This is a lot to take in.
It is. It really is. It's like all these pieces from different puzzles are suddenly starting to fit together. And if any of this is true, even a little bit, it means that we're in this spiritual war that most people don't even realize is happening.
It's a pretty mind-blowing concept, and our sources even suggest that maybe these entities, these demonic forces, are twisting spiritual language and ideas to try to trick us. Maybe they're pretending to be friendly aliens, or they're offering some kind of fake salvation.
That's right. It's a level of deception that's hard to even imagine. It makes you question everything you think you know about reality, and good and evil.
So this deep dive has definitely taken us to some pretty strange and kind of creepy places. UFO sightings, government conspiracies, ancient myths, demonic influence. It's a lot. And it makes you question everything you thought you knew.
That's the point, isn't it? It's about facing the unknown, questioning everything, and considering all the possibilities, even the ones that seem really out there.
Yeah. And even if we don't come away with all the answers, the journey itself is valuable, right? It makes you think differently about the world.
Totally. It opens up new ways of seeing things. So we've delved into the mysteries of UFOs, the ancient astronaut theory, and the possibilities of mind control and demonic influence. We've been on a wild ride. Maybe we don't have all the answers, but we definitely have more questions now. And that's what real exploration is all about. So keep questioning, keep searching, and who knows what other mysteries you'll discover.